Hello, welcome to Let's Draw Goths Live, which is not to be confused with Let's Draw Goths Who Are Alive. You know what I mean. So, what's going to happen if you've never seen the show before? Welcome. What I'm going to do is draw some Goths, and I'm going to talk about some of my life experiences and how they relate to your art career, that sort of thing. And somehow it's all going to make enough sense for YouTube. And that's it. Can you hear me okay? Are we okay on levels and everything? All right. So I was thinking about, well, I've been having experiences with my young son. He's 4, and we're trying to teach him independence. You know, he's going to get independence as his birthday present, and I think that's a pretty dad thing to think of, but you know, it is important. He's been, you know, relying on us to get him up out of the bed, even though he could get up. He's been relying on us to pull the pants up and down when he's going potty, otherwise on his own. And you know, I pulled him aside yesterday and I just told him, you know, when I was 4, okay, I was already making twos, you know, making number twos on my own in the neighbor's backyard. So it's important for you to learn to do this sort of thing for yourself. And so that reminded me that I think that's a good thing to talk about as far as being an artist, how to be independent, right? How to be an indie artist. It starts with being independent. So let's get to drawing some Goths and we'll talk about that. Sound good? Take a look at where we're at with Elvira. Okay, there was another point that I wanted to make about being independent as an artist and that sense of independence. And that is, I guess, to be a creative, we all need to have an almost, if not definitely, unhealthy level of confidence. And that's because creating and making art is just nothing but decisions. It's a million decisions, one line after another, one paint stroke after another, whatever, that you have to decide for yourself if it's a good idea or not in the moment. And so that takes a level of confidence, and it's different than maybe the type of confidence that could get you to go talk to that special somebody at a club, or you know, however else you might see confidence. But it does take a level of confidence to be able to just get through a drawing or a painting, you know. I'm trying to tripping out here because the photo, she's very slim, but definitely doing this kind of bending to her spine that I want to capture. I guess I bring up this confidence idea because I still think about this interaction I had with a guy in art school. And it was, you know, one of these more like senior level classes. We had put up our homework onto the bulletin board for everybody to critique. And this guy was sort of like getting up close and, you know, kind of dissecting my drawing in like a good way. Like he was impressed, of course, but he was like, oh, it was a cartooning, character design class. So it was all about getting that line quality to look like something on Nickelodeon or whatever, right? And he was like, how do you, decide on what lines to make thick and what lines to make thin, how, like he was expecting me to tell him like some kind of formula. And I think that happens a lot. Like you're inexperienced, you're a beginner, and you get a hold of somebody. I know I did this all the time. You get a hold of somebody who's more experienced than you, and you want to grill them in order to like get the formula out of them. Just tell me what it is you're doing, what pen it is that you own, what brand is your pen. And this area is really giving me problems here. Just tell me the formula and I'll move on and be an awesome artist. And it just never, that doesn't work. There is no formula. And I told him at the time, I told this guy, just use the force. And it wasn't a joke, really. I mean, I know that there's not really a force, but maybe there is. Maybe there's something, there is something magical that kind of happens when you're creating and you're not thinking too much about it. You kind of let your hands take over. Because I don't know what lines like to tell them to make thicker and which lines to make thinner, Just use the force. Remember that? I think I brought this up in a previous video, but I just think about that, climactic scene in Star Wars where Luke's got the targeting module up or whatever it's called up against his face. Oh, I see. She's just kind of too thick down here. Right? He's got the targeting computer up against his face, and all of his, fellow rebels are doing the same thing. He's doing what he's supposed to. He's got the technology against his face. And then he hears the voice of Ben Kenobi being like, use the force, Luke. And he ignores it, tries to like shrug it off at first, and then he hears it again. And then he puts the computer away, and all of his friends are like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm okay. I got this. And he just feels it out, And when the pressure is on like that, that is really hard to just decide that you're going to do it by feel instead. And if you get it wrong, what if he just missed? He's like, I'm really good at feeling it out, you guys. You don't understand. And I probably would have got it. I just didn't get it this time. What if he had to go back to the rebel base and explain why he didn't make the target? But he did. He felt it out and he got it. But sometimes you do feel it out and you don't get it. And you just got to be okay with that and hope that you don't get shot by Darth Vader over it. You got to hopefully survive feeling it out, but you got to, most stuff in life, you got to just feel it out and do the best you can. Man, maybe that's a really bad message to put out there in this age of us recovering from, our president going by his gut for 4 years and seeing where that put us. But I think if you're a decent person, it's going to be okay. My son is dismantling the house right now. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, mommy's taking the hammer away from my son, so I can't interrupt a live stream. Can't do it. Okay, so I'm gonna leave her bustier alone for a moment. I feel like it's getting a little overworked as I try to figure it out. And get into her hands. Man, the great thing about drawing digitally, though, is this, once you get the muscle memory figured out to where you're not thinking about it, the rotating and zooming, it just beats even like drawing digitally with the Wacom tablet like we used to, right? Well, I don't know why I thought of it just now while drawing this area, but Larry Flint died. What do you think of that? I guess I was surprised too, because like I was like, Larry Flint's still alive? A lot healthier people died a lot sooner. I thought he was in ill health for a long time. I guess the lesson learned from him, though, is at the core of freedom of speech. You know, you hear that a lot, and there's a lot of misconceptions about what is like in our Constitution about freedom of speech and what is okay to put out there and what should be censored. And he tested that stuff, and he tested it in court, you know, and I don't even remember what the outcome was exactly. Obviously, it was enough of a happy ending to make a movie about it, right? I don't remember what happened when he had to fight it in federal court with the obscenity charges. But it just goes to the core of, like, if you believe in freedom of speech, then you have to, like, accept that the things that you are not happy about hearing, that gross you out or whatever, you still have to defend that. And unfortunately, what we're going through now is more about what happens when that freedom of speech is going to incite people to violence. Of course, that's a different thing. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Now I've dragged my feet long enough about doing her hands. Hands are never easy. I think the biggest thing about getting them somewhat right is understanding. Let's see here. If I can get a color that would demonstrate this flow that goes through a person's parts, which is like the center point of whatever body part, limbs, whatever. And getting that right. And so with her hand, I would be tempted to make that back of her hand too bent back, because at first glance it looks like it's really bent up, but I think that's really more of her thumb meat that's making this right angle here. But actually, it's just like this flow, like, what is it? Yeah, it's just like this S-curve flow that goes this way that I want to make sure I get. And then the other hand is doing the same thing, but from a different angle for our point of view. Let's see. Really foreshortened there, and then something like that. And then she's got like these, the index fingers go up higher. So I'm just trying to figure that out before I actually draw the real version. Yeah, something like that. Okay, back to black. Speaking of experimenting and everything, I generally wouldn't do this underdrawing flow thing necessarily. Just giving it a try to see if it helps with this difficult area. Have you ever noticed, like, if you're drawing, for me, if I'm like drawing a celebrity that I like, or a person in my life that I like, it's harder because you're like in your mind more concerned with you know, making sure that they're happy with it and not thinking that you made them look weird or anything. No problem here. So, no. Tough. Like with the slim, sultry sort of fingers, I try to almost now just go full liquid, like it's those hands that are on the windows in nail salons. But still not easy. I picked up the Night Flight channel yesterday. Remember Night Flight? Kind of been developing a relationship with those guys there in their modern form, but they were in the 80s, kind of a pre-MTV kind of a thing where you could learn about alternative music, punk music. I think they ran sort of like your lower budget movies sometimes. Anyway, I gotta watch this thing. I put it on my list, but it's a documentary about like video artists of the day, you know, that would make all the cool VHS effects happen. You know, like recursive squares and all that 80s stuff you think of. And I've been trying to figure out how to do that for myself with my videos, to be honest. Can't figure it out. And just from looking at this video on Night Flight, I'm like, oh, I get it. Now I know why I'm having trouble doing this. I don't have a room full of equipment that's hooked up to VCRs and multiple VCRs and weird exposed circuit boards and everything, you know, so that's why. Oh, I see the problem. This knuckle is, or a segment of her finger is totally foreshortened for the most part. Let's just start over on that. Well, good enough for YouTube, I guess. Well, I guess that's about all I had to say about independence. We talked about the Force. We went through the whole life journey in barely an hour, from should you be an independent artist all the way to using the Force. So I think that's pretty good. I think that's a good coverage of that subject. Now to finish Elvira and see what else comes out of my mouth. You know what? I think this is good enough to color in real quick. Let's turn off the underdrawing. Trying to figure out the structure of her outfit. Well, this definitely needs to be filled in black here. Last week I was talking about the idea of not getting caught up in drawing what you believe things are as far as their structure or how they're built or how they work, because, you know, that doesn't mean that that's how something looks in real life. And more importantly for me, it might not be, it's more about how things feel. At least try to go for how they look in real life. And if you can't do that, or even better, do what something feels like. And I think Michael would agree that's a very children's book friendly way of approaching illustration. You want to show the viewer, but especially kids, I think, what something feels like more than what it looks like. So last week the example was eyeballs, like the iris and how it's all structured, and people get really caught up, like beginners will get caught up in trying to show that they know exactly how, like the anatomy of an eye, regardless of whether it's a giant blow up 8-foot painting of an eyeball. That's one thing, but the rest of the time you really can't be drawing and painting that way, all hyper and anatomical with all the multiple highlights and lines going through. Anyway, this time I was just noticing that when I color her, let's see here, I have to pick out a flesh tone, Caucasian flesh, which is the same as the paper, so maybe I'll just leave that. But then her little teddy here, she's got like what would that be, like nylon mesh? And so if you know how that stuff is made, you know that it's like a bunch of little threads crisscrossing each other, right? But you could draw that, but if I sat down and like tried to hatch out each thread, it wouldn't really give that ultra sheer look that we're going for, that I'm going for with this. So instead, I'm just going to paint a blue tone, and it kind of creates like almost like a feeling of a half tone between whatever color that nylon is and her skin coming through. They kind of mix the way a half tone pattern would. They blend. And I could add more detail there or not, we'll see. Maybe you could kind of also show how it feels by going back on what I just said and actually drawing a couple little cross hatches, maybe in an area where there'd be shadow, like around her rib cage here. And then by hatching there, I can make like a little bit of tone to show her anatomy. But also it shows, that this is made of a mesh in a way. Maybe here too. Sorry if my creepy act gets too creepy. All right, so I like doing both. I think they kind of are interesting together, except that might be too much. In the photo, she's got like fire in front of her and a red background, and I don't think I'm going to be getting involved in that. I'm going to keep it kind of flat and cartoony still. Did I ever tell my flat cartoony story. My flat cartoony story. You know the one. No, this drawing just reminds me of this time when I went to this life drawing class. I think I brought this up previously, but um, it wasn't a class. It was like a unstructured studio time, right, where people could just come and practice however they wanted to. Practice drawing from life, from a live model, which is so important. And if you don't have a model at your home and you're needing to be COVID safe right now, then there's not a whole lot you can do about life models right now, but I hope that we can all go back to doing that in the future. Or you rope in somebody in your household to model for you. But you can't just draw from photos, especially when you're starting out. Anyway, point is, I was at this thing and I drew the model in a similar style to this Elvira drawing. Not your classic artsy look, you know. And I liked it. I was happy. But this old guy, this was the North Bay area near San Francisco, where there was just like a lot of like they're called Marinites, you know, just like the people who are doing pretty well for themselves. And maybe I picture this guy was like, you know, semi-retired and decided to be an artist, and so to see things outside of his understanding of artsy time just kind of ruined it for him, because he looked over at my drawing and goes, "I thought this was supposed to be serious," like mostly to the person running the studio, but you know, also to kind of to me, so that I would hear. And what somebody else's perceptions of what's supposed to be going on in an art setting is not anybody else's responsibility to, you know, to follow through on. It's not my problem if he wanted it to be artsier time than what I was given. And I just kind of held on to that memory and used it when I developed my own art studio. I wanted it to be, you know, when I was doing live models and having people come and draw with me, I wanted to make sure that people didn't act like that, and that it was more fun than that. I don't know why I'm putting more detail into her outfit than is even in the photo, but that's okay. I feel like I'm going over on time. I wanted to keep it to an hour, but we'll just kind of see if I can wrap this up. So her stockings down here are more of a, looks like what do you call it? Fishnets. So that's going to be a different sort of color and tone than her little sheer teddy area. So I'm going to warm this up. Like that, maybe darker. And then for fun, we'll just do a little darker bit. Cool it down, maybe all the way to gray, I don't know. Maybe I'll lock the transparency, kind of give it that running off into space look at the bottom, so I don't need a border. And maybe I'll do the same thing with a couple dashes to give a indication of the type of fabric that's going on here too. Like I said, when you're an illustrator, it's not about rendering out everything in the whole world. It's more about just making the viewer understand what it is you're trying to convey as simply as possible. I don't know. That doesn't look great. You know what you could do is, what if kept doing a couple more hatches down here? That's not going to work. I was thinking maybe that would be all highlight, but it doesn't look like a highlight. I'm just going to back. No, I don't need to back up. I'll just. Oops. Sorry if that thumped anything. I'm just going to paint over that. I don't like that. What I was thinking though is, what if you took the flesh color here, the Elvira Pale, and what if there was a couple of hatches with this color instead, and a different pen? Too big. I think that works better. Maybe I'll just keep going all the way up the leg here. I gotta stop doing that. All right, that works. And then I was thinking that I'll just leave her flesh tone with the paper color, and I'll just color in behind her. Okay, that works for now. I'm gonna need to do something more to her hair, but I'm gonna wait till I have a background. And I think I'm gonna see what happens if I select outside of her inked area. I think that's gonna work, mostly. Here. Well, I don't think that's gonna work, but we'll do our best. We'll just put it on another layer. Sometimes if there's little gaps, in the drawing that doesn't work. Oh, you know what I could do? I'm going to try again. I will make sure close gaps is selected and increase the gap size that it'll allow for. And try again. There it is. It was going in, the selection was going into her body, so I don't need that. Just need behind her arms here. And then I think I'll just fix this area with the where it went into her tights. There. Now, I got this new layer here. I'm just gonna get a better red. Okay, I worked for a design company. They just did t-shirts back in the, what, maybe the late 90s, 2000s. I worked for them in like 2005. It's called Gamago. And I don't think it's a proprietary bit of information, but one of the big things I learned from working with them for a while was that you go to open up the colors when you're picking colors, and when you're picking out colors, there's like the saturated point up here and the black point down here, white, and then black again. You pick somewhere in there when you're picking out a color. They never had a color picked out that was up in any corner too much, you know, not too close to white, not too saturated, etc. It was always like in here. And then you get these more like natural, non-garish colors. So thanks for that little tidbit of information. Yep, missed a spot. What do you think? I might get rid of some of this stuff though. I don't need the whole area red. That looks kind of not great for me. Oops. I like how Clip Studio and I think Fresco has something similar. I'm not sure if Procreate does, but you can erase with your brush by choosing the transparency as a color. Because that eraser on its own, you know, you don't get as much control unless you start playing with the tool. But I rather just use the tool that I'm already using and change it to painting with transparency. It's a little different. Yeah, now she's got sort of a border treatment. And I think I'll just leave it like that for now, not get too overboard with the... no, I'm going to go overboard after all. Get a little lighter tone. You know what? You could actually go orangier. That's another way of lightening things up. Too orangey? Now we'll see. Oh, here, I got an idea. We will do a little Clip Studio trickery that normally you'd have to buy one of my courses for on Skillshare.com, t-shirt design. But I'm gonna do a little halftone trick by going to layer properties and choosing this halftone effect, bringing the frequency way down. And the frequency is just about the size of the dots that I'm going to be making. And then, let's see. maybe I'll use like an airbrush, make it really huge. Bigger still. No, I think the airbrush is messing things up. Yeah, okay. Huge, and then the frequency, make it like, there we go. So this is just a cool effect that works well with, like, you know, digital illustration, but also it's great for doing t-shirts because you can have sort of a gradient effect without actually putting a gradient into your you know, each pixel is a slightly different color like a photo would be. That is kind of too subtle for t-shirt design, at least the graphical style t-shirts that I like to do. So I'm just going to make like a little swoosh of this stuff. And so what happens is I did it with white because it's just easier to control that way. And then I'm going to, I call it set it in stone by making a new layer, put it underneath, and then merge that down. And so now it's just a normal layer that happens to be a bunch of dots, if that makes sense. It's not a halftone layer anymore. And then I'll make a selection from this background. And go back to the layer with the dots and go delete outside selection. And then I'll lock the transparency, choose that orange color that I found earlier, and fill it. And now we've got like a nice subtle background treatment, which I might even darken this a little bit because it doesn't look great. That's close enough. That looks better. You get the idea. All right, and then before Elvira's done, I'm just gonna give a little color in her face and hair because it's kind of blank looking right now. So I'm gonna lock this background. I think I'll even merge this down to make it simple. Lock that so I don't accidentally paint on it. And I could even do something below that so that it doesn't get in the way of the background. I'll show you what I mean. Let's see here. So in the photo, her hair is just sort of picking up that background color. And I want to get a little indication of that without becoming Renderella. Is what my wife calls it when I go too nuts on rendering. A little darker, less saturated. And a nice big brush. It's too subtle still. I'm not the best at coloring, and I think for me a lot of times I have to just lay something down and see if it works or not. If it doesn't work, I see that and I fix it. I can't sit there agonizing over, you know, did I pick out the right color or not? That's why it's really hard doing like watercolors. The markers that I've been using to color in my coloring book images, that's tough because you got to choose first most of the time. You can kind of go over stuff, but mostly just got to choose a color and hope it works. And if it doesn't work, you start over again. And then what happens is to turn a form, they call it, to make it look like really three-dimensional, like her hair here. I really want to simply show that it's three-dimensional. How can I do that quickly? I think what I'll do is this color is a little on the, it's up here at the top of the colors, so it's a little bluish. I could go orangier on the other side, or I might go bluer. So maybe I'll bring this down into the, getting toward the violet zone, and then the violet zone. That would be a great like B movie. No, it wouldn't. The violent zone. Maybe the violent zone. Bluer? I don't know. Yeah. You can kind of go blue by just going toward the gray too. You don't have to bring that arrow down into the blue, if that makes sense. So now it's sort of a purpley gray, which feels kind of bluer. It's called being bluer than the other side. I don't know. This is one of my many coloring hacks, because you just got to figure out a way to make it work with your weaker strengths, your non-strengths, and I'm not a color theory guy really. So just gonna do what works. Oh, but like I was saying, I'm coloring her hair here, but it's behind this background image, so I don't even have to worry about going out of lines. Super quick, semi-quick. And I think I'm gonna leave everything at least purple, no white, except maybe that one by her bangs, just to call attention to the right areas. All right, and then I think I'm gonna just use the same color real quick for her eyes. Maybe use a pencil to get a different texture. Keep all the darkness and attention. Oops, sorry for being too loud there. Keep all the attention and the darkness up top, because she kind of de-emphasizes the area of the inner eyes. Maybe I'll just go a little more saturated and darker here. Smoky eyes. I assume that Elvira has blue eyes. I can't tell from the photo. Maybe just for color theory's sake, I'll keep it purpley. You know, not introduce too many colors into this. Let's see if it works. Kind of crazy now. You know what? I got blue in this already, so let's just use something based on this same teddy color here. Teddy color. All right. Don't be writing any comments. And then she needs a little bit of highlight. I'm not going to go all anime nuts on it, but people tend to not really look alive unless you put at least one highlight in their eyes, you know? Have you ever looked at like people who are in prison for life for killing somebody or whatever, and you look at their mugshot and there's like no highlights. You know, their eyes are kind of sunken and dark, and it's almost like the life isn't there. You can use that knowledge to your advantage either way, you know? Make somebody look alive or not. I think that it's okay, but she's a little wild-eyed looking, so I'm gonna maybe see what happens if I give her more bedroom eyes. Bring the hair down a little bit more. Just want to make sure it doesn't go so low that it covers the highlights. All right, I guess that's it. And then maybe, I guess I introduced white for those highlights. I could put a little white around her eye meat and her eyeballs to bring them out a little bit. Let's see if that looks good or weird. We shall see. Just round them out a little bit. Is that silly? Yeah, that works. And then I want to get some lipstick on her. It's going to go dark first. And what if I could use that same orange? There's this palette down here in Clip Studio called Color History that I've just started using pretty recently. I appreciate it instead of having to resample the same colors over and over again. Yeah, I think for color consistency's sake, I'm gonna leave it orangier than instead of trying to do some kind of ruby red lips that might be more accurate to the photo. I'm gonna just kind of try to simplify the colors that are going on in here. And a little bit in this collar for fun. A little more detail in her collar. She's got like studs. I think I want to make sure that there's studs on here, and I put them in weird spots. I'm going to fix that. Make sure they're centered. And then I'm going to choose this gray again, because if they're sort of reflective steel or whatever, chrome, I don't want them to be white, so especially in the shadow area. So I'm just going to use little impressionistic blips here. Does that work? That's okay. It works okay. Also, she only has one breast. And that's not going to work. So let's do another one here. Just make sure the line quality is okay. And then what you want to make sure here, this is like a comic booky illustrative look, so we want to make sure that it's not overly rendered, and you also don't want to like make some kind of bathroom stall situation here. So I'm going to do like a feathered look, just like on this side. This is called feathering. Well, okay, I guess that's good enough. And then I'm going to get a little bit of reflective light going on her skin. Just an indication. Again, forcing myself to not render. That looks crazy. So she's got like blush or, you know, exaggerated contouring. And then she's got this reflective light coming from the background area. So I want to try to get that as best I can without going nuts on rendering. So, oh, you know what'd be cool? I'll keep it simple. I was thinking about doing the halftone dots again, but I don't want to get that involved at this stage here. Okay. That is blending into the background too much. It looks exactly the same. So I'm gonna fix that. I think what I'll do is select it and just go into tone correction. See if I can't just fix it with some sliders. That's better. Well, it looks a little weird on the stream, but you'll just have to trust me that it looks okay. It looks okay on here. So now that we have that color figured out, I'm just gonna add it in a couple other areas. Oops. I don't want to go nuts. I always go too nuts at this stage. Because let's face it, this stuff's the easy. This is the easy part. I already got her, like, her structure figured out. But you can go too nuts with the detail. But I just want to get a little more indication of a little more color and lighting, you know. Be a good time for some stabilization. Stabilization just evens out your stroke so it's not so lumpy looking. That's a pretty lumpy looking arm now. Did I miss anything talking about being an indie artist? I feel like I went over that okay. Went through the whole lifespan, right? There's been times though when I probably, you know, I definitely had opportunities that I backed out on because I wanted to like see myself as an independent and be like, oh, I'm not working for that guy. I'd rather do my own thing. I'd rather make my own comics than draw this guy's comic. And you know, there'd be times where it was an experienced person who was going to pay, I still turn them down in my younger follies, and I think that that goes back to the anxiety, or I don't know, self-confidence. I'm not sure what got in the way, but there's been times where I was a little too independent, and I let opportunities go by, and that's a shame, because I think when I was younger I thought that they would just keep coming. Oh yeah, opportunities, they keep just like on an assembly line coming at you, right? Not really. Not if you don't take up some of them. You gotta take up some of the opportunities and do the best you can. You know, I probably could do like a different color on this side to match what I'm doing with this purple hair, but I think I'm just gonna try to wrap this up for now. Maybe I could select these areas and fudge with them later. Yes, I said fudge with them. What's the biggest opportunity that you've ever passed on for no good reason? Those sting, man. They do. I think one of the ones that really sticks with me now is shortly after graduating from art school, I knew a guy from school who got a job. I don't remember what he was doing. You know, kind of in a leadership role at an animation studio in Oakland. And he offered to have me come out and check out what they were doing and see if I want to get in on it. And I did. I went out and checked it out. And I passed. You know, I was living like 2 hours away from Oakland at that point. And I was like, I don't want to drive. But you know what they were doing was, I was semi-familiar with the people that they were working with, as far as who was producing the story and writing it and everything. It was the people that made Dr. Katz. And they were making a new show that wasn't Dr. Katz, but man, in the last like few years, I've gone back and just become such a huge fan of Dr. Katz, to where like I'll just listen to episodes sometimes and not even worry about the animation part of it. But to have been able to work with them in any capacity, even if it was like remotely and they were on the East Coast or something, I wish I had done that. Because it's like, where could that have led to? I don't even know, you know? Again, I don't want to go nuts, but I want to give a little indication of her collarbone, and then we're going to call it good. Because I've definitely gone over time again. I don't think you guys pick up on it with my microphone, but I live somewhere where some definite crazy stuff gets yelled or otherwise goes on outside my front area of the house. So apologies if I make weird faces while I'm drawing. Oh, you know what else is nice about this orange tone is it rounds her out and kind of slims things down a little bit, so that's kind of working nicely. I think that's it. A little back here, that's too small. You know, what might be fun is real quick, just for fun, I'll put a little bit of oranginess down on her stockings here. So I think what I'll do is I'll make a new layer, and I'll make it like a multiply layer. Multiply? That was weird. It's not toilet paper. Multiply. That didn't work, but let's see here. I'll put that down and see what else might work. No. 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 Wait a minute. That kind of works. Might even like change the color a little bit. You guys see that? It's subtle, but I made it a little orangier. I mean, purplier. Okay, did I miss anything? I think so. The only thing is she looks okay, but her eye still looks kind of crazy, so I'm going to fix that real quick. I think the easiest thing might be to just bring the hair down. There, done. I did it. All right, let's see. Let's zoom out a little bit. And there is a decent pinup of Elvira. I think that came out pretty good. I could certainly go in and clean up little areas where there's dits missing, but you get the idea. Good enough for YouTube. And I'll sign it, and I will sign off. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Keep drawing goths.